Hello, a very welcome to all of you. Thank you very much for being on time. We are very happy that you are participating in our Nuclear Free Future Award event 2020. I'm Anne Balzer from Icahn, Germany. I will host this meeting now. And next to me is Sascha Hach from the Nuclear Free Future Foundation.
With a lot of distance.
Yeah, we manage to keep the distance here in this room. That's why you will see only one of us at the time. So we are still missing a few people, but you never know who really shows up. We had a lot of registrations. And of course, I will let the people in this room if they are joining later. For now, we want to give you a little very brief introduction what the Nuclear Free Future Award actually is. And because you will listen to both of us and the laureates, the interpreters and people from the Nuclear Free Future Foundation within the next 90 minutes a lot, we will show you a little movie about the award, and we hope it works and we hope you will enjoy it.
Since 1998, the Nuclear Free Future Award has honored people worldwide who are committed to a future free of nuclear power and nuclear weapons. Our laureates represent the size and diversity of the global anti-nuclear movement. Their steadfast resistance, educational outreach, and visionary quests for solutions have contributed to making our world a better and healthier place for the environment and for human life. Their inspiring engagement and often life-changing decisions serve as examples of how every individual and group of individuals can make change happen, no matter where we come from or how small our first steps may be. Because these individuals are so often unrecognized, the prize aims to help get their voices heard. Uranium has been extracted from the earth since the 1930s, first in the Belgian colony of Congo, then for decades in other African countries, in Europe and the US. Today, Kazakhstan, Canada, and Australia are the three biggest producers. Uranium is used in nuclear power plants, atomic bombs, and military projectiles. The exploitation of uranium has devastating effects on the environment and human health. The civil use of nuclear energy entails high risks and has repeatedly caused disasters, the aftermath of which we still endure today. Nuclear weapons tests have destroyed entire landscapes and caused unacceptable human suffering. The detonation of a nuclear weapon by accident or in war would cost thousands of lives.
We hope that you already got a little overview about the Great Nuclear Free Future Award, and now you will be introduced to the people who will be awarded this year. And therefore, I now give the word to Klaus Biegert from the Nuclear Free Future Foundation.
Hello, and hello to Andrey Talevlin and Fedor Maryasov. It's great to see you. In the past, it has always been a great joy to meet at the various award ceremonies we had around the world, to meet the people. This time it has to be online, so it's a new experience for all of us. And my first question to both of you is, all of a sudden there is a little money coming, and maybe there has been something on your agenda you always wanted to do, but there never was enough funding, and now you can do it. So we would like to hear from you what the award means financially for you. What will you do with the prize money?
Здравствуйте, я очень рад присутствовать на церемонии, очень рад наконец-то встретиться с людьми, которые посещали наши предыдущие церемонии. В этом году мы вынуждены проводить ее в интернете. И сейчас я хочу обратиться к Андрею и Федору. И мой первый вопрос вам обоим. Как эта премия и денежное вознаграждение поможет вам? Может быть, было что-то в ваших планах, что вы хотели бы осуществить, но вам не хватало денег? Как деньги за премию могут вам помочь? И что вы сможете благодаря ним сделать в будущем?
My name is Andrey Talevlin. I'm from Russia, from Chelyabinsk. First, thank you so much for your support. I'm sure that the prohibition of nuclear weapons and nuclear-free future is our common goal. About award, I have already spent some of the funds on updating my communication device, and I plan to use another part of the funds to support one environmental project in Russia. It is smart Яблоков, Алексей Владимирович Яблоков, Яблоков Foundation.
Спасибо большое. Я очень рад этой возможности и могу сказать, что я уже потратил часть средств на улучшение своих средств связи и планирую потратить остальную часть денег на один экологический проект в России, который будет связан с фондом Алексея Яблокова.
I speak in Russian. Хочу еще раз поприветствовать всех участников нашей встречи и коротко рассказать о деле своей жизни и о своей мечте.
I want to welcome all the participants once again, and I'm going to talk about my life's work and my dream.
Я живу в закрытом городе, где строится крупнейший в мире могильник для захоронения самых опасных радиоактивных отходов. Этот объект будет представлять угрозу всему живому многие тысячи и миллионы лет.
I live in a small close town in Russia where the world's largest nuclear waste repository is being constructed, and it poses threat to all living beings for thousands and even million years ahead.
Здесь уже накоплено такое количество радиоактивных отходов, что их суммарная радиоактивность в десятки раз превышает выброс, который произошел во время аварии на Чернобыльской атомной станции.
So much nuclear waste has been accumulated there that its total radioactivity exceeds that of the release of radiation at the Chernobyl nuclear accident.
Жителям Европы и других стран может показаться, что эти проблемы их не касаются, но это не так.
The people that live in Europe and in other countries might not see that this problem also affects them, but it does.
Для лучшего понимания проблемы приведу простой пример. 3 недели назад в Сибири произошло сильное землетрясение. Эпицентр находился всего в 130 километрах от этого места, от этого могильника. И независимые эксперты сравнили это событие с пулей, пролетевшей рядом с головой.
I'll give you an example for a better understanding. Just 3 weeks ago, an earthquake occurred in Siberia, just 130 kilometers away from that repository. Independent experts compared that event with a situation as if a bullet just passed near your head.
Этот могильник строится рядом с одной из крупнейших рек мира, впадающей в мировой океан. И если опасные радиоактивные отходы прорвутся в реку, то последствия могут коснуться жителей самых отдаленных районов планеты.
This repository is being constructed at the banks of one of the largest rivers that flows into the world ocean. And if the waste is to enter the waters, well, people in the remote regions of the world could feel the consequences and can be affected.
Это безумие необходимо остановить. И я сделал это делом своей жизни. В этом моя мечта. Но силы не равны, приходится бороться с очень влиятельной атомной корпорацией. Вот почему для меня и моих коллег так важна любая помощь.
So this is my life's work, and this is also my dream. However, the powers are not equal, and I have to challenge the powerful cooperation. So my colleagues and I always welcome any kind of support.
В России сегодня тяжело жить, а бороться за свои права здесь еще тяжелее. Ну и если кто-то бросает вызов властям, то его жизнь быстро превращается в ад.
So it is hard living in Russia, and fighting for your rights in Russia is even harder. So if someone challenges the authorities, his life is being turned to hell.
Последние годы мне было очень тяжело. Я был уже в отчаянии, и финансовая поддержка в виде премии оказалась очень вовремя. Это позволяет мне выжить и продолжить борьбу на какое-то время. И я очень благодарен за эту награду.
So the past several years have been especially hard. I was on the brink of despair. However, the award and the money with this award have helped me to go on living and fighting for my cause. And I'm very grateful to everyone who is supporting us.
Разумеется, российским чиновникам не нравится, когда общественные активисты получают помощь из-за рубежа. Но без этой помощи бороться с государственной машиной невозможно. Поэтому я еще раз выражаю благодарность всем тем людям, кто поддерживает общественных активистов в их борьбе.
So, the Russian authorities, of course, frown upon the help that activists receive from abroad, but without this help and this support, it is impossible to fight the governmental Goliath. So I am grateful to everyone who's providing support and help.
Thanks.
Partly you answered already, Fedor, my second question. We honor people and want to help, but there's always this question: does the award really help, or does it bring danger to people, or unexpected risks or problems? But since Oleg nominated you, we were sure we can go forward. But again, my question is: an honor coming, an international honor, does it also create problems? Can it create problems?
Спасибо большое. Мы всегда готовы и рады помочь. Но мой следующий вопрос такой. Может ли быть так, что помощь, международное признание в вашем деле также навлекает и проблемы, может быть, какие-то риски на вас? Мы, конечно, были рады, когда Олег номинировал вас на эту награду, но я хотел бы узнать, а не станет ли международное признание, возможно, источником новых проблем?
Ну, пока об этом говорить сложно, поскольку сейчас, так скажем, наши оппоненты находятся в некотором шоке. Они уже думали, что они меня победили, но благодаря поддержке наших российских коллег, как вот в частности Олег, вот, и в том числе ваша поддержка, она даст мне возможность и силы борьбу продолжить.
Well, it is difficult to say now, and our opponents in Russia, they are shocked because they were sure that they had won. However, the help and support of our Russian colleagues, including Oleg and yours, of course, provide us hope for the future and make us stronger.
Эта премия, скорее всего, их напугала, моих оппонентов. Поэтому какие они меры предпримут, пока еще трудно сказать, время покажет. Но думаю, что международная поддержка, практика показывает, она является хорошей гарантией для того, чтобы власти все-таки свои репрессивные эти механизмы попридержали.
Well, this award, I think, seems to have scared my opponents, and it is difficult to say now what action they could take. However, the international recognition is always a good guarantee that the authorities could hold back their repressive machinery for now.
То есть международная огласка и поддержка является самой лучшей гарантией безопасности.
International awareness and support is the best guarantee of my security.
Well, it's good to hear. And Andrey, let's hear your experience, your point of view, please.
Очень рад это слышать. Андрей, расскажите, пожалуйста, о вашем опыте.
Okay, my answer is no. I hope is no. Of course, the situation in Russia is now difficult. The authorities are putting pressure on environmental activists. However, I believe then international recognition helps us to take important anti-nuclear and environmental actions. For example, we now against the import of uranium hexafluoride. It is nuclear material into Russia from Germany and France. And we against the import of spent nuclear fuel from Europe to Ural, where I live. All people on the planet have rights, including the rights to environmental safety. And it is my answer. Thanks.
Я отвечу так. Нет, это не создает новых проблем. И, конечно, ситуация в России сложна, но, тем не менее, движение экоактивистов продолжается, несмотря на то, что власти оказывают на них давление. И я считаю, что международное признание все-таки позволит активистам, которые выступают против ядерных технологий и выступают в защиту экологии, продолжать свою работу. Например, мы уже добились того, что импорт уранового гексафторида, вида топлива, перестал ввозиться на Урал и в те места, где я живу. И я горд тем, что экоактивизм продолжает свою деятельность.
Well, thank you very much, both of you, and I hope that we will meet in person in the near future. And
Thanks.
Большое спасибо вам обоим, и надеюсь, когда-нибудь мы встретимся.
Good work and walk tall.
Я благодарю вас и держите хвост пистолет.
Thanks so much for these activities, for all your insights, and Dimitri also for the translation. Thank you very much. I have the honor now to introduce Ray Acheson. She is the director of Reaching Critical Will, the disarmament program of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. The discourse on nuclear weapons is still very much focusing and dominated by men, and focusing on the geopolitical dimensions of these weapons. Making the voices of women heard is an integral part in the search for solutions for real nuclear disarmament. And already since 2005, Ray is actually advocating for the gendered perspectives on nuclear weapons. She provides analysis, research, and advocacy across a wide range of disarmament and arms trade aspects. Through her comprehensive work about how conflict and gender-based violence are related and affected the nuclear realm, she has promoted the recognition of the importance of women's participation in nuclear disarmament, in negotiations and policies and politics. And one of her greatest results is actually the adoption of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, the TPNW, which will enter into force on the 22nd January next year. So, dear Ray, thanks so much for all your efforts and impulses. And for now, I also have a short question for you. What do you think? What will the entry into force of the TPNW change for the nuclear arms control in general, and also for the future participation of women in the debate?
Thanks very much, Anne, and thank you very much to the Nuclear Free Future Award for this amazing recognition for all of the work of the awardees this year. It's an honor to be in all of your company. And also thank you for recognizing the importance of feminist perspectives on nuclear weapons and for disarmament. To answer your question, the TPNW is going to have a few impacts, some of which are going to be unknown, difficult to predict when and how this treaty will have an impact on our future. But what we do know for sure is that on January 22nd, it will become binding on all of its states parties, which will have implications for them in terms of how they need to talk to their allies about nuclear weapons. They will have a legally binding obligation to promote the treaty and to encourage nuclear armed states and nuclear umbrella states to join in and to renounce nuclear weapons. It'll establish a new forum for states to meet to talk about nuclear weapons, which initially will not include the nuclear armed states. And as we saw with the negotiations of this treaty, that can be incredibly productive to be able to advance norms and objectives around these weapons without them in the room. We also know that it's going to have an incredible normative effect, which is already underway in terms of stigmatizing the possession of nuclear weapons and the development and deployment of these weapons. We can already see that public opinion polls in the nuclear armed states and in the nuclear umbrella states supporting this treaty, including during the pandemic. People are still concerned about this issue and see real parallels in terms of crisis and humanitarian response. And the ways that governments are handling this crisis, I think, gives us some indication of what could happen in the event of the worst possible outcomes. We've also seen political leaders in nuclear umbrella states, including two former NATO Secretary Generals and former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon signing a letter saying that all of the nuclear umbrella states, nuclear armed states, need to join the TPNW. So this was a huge initiative that ICANN Australia led on over the past few months. And we're seeing more and more activists promoting this treaty too. The normative impacts aren't just on states, but they're also on us and what is considered credible and possible within our spheres of activism. The TPNW has really changed that. There was a lot of people that thought it wouldn't have any impact, that we could never accomplish it. And now here we are, it's about to enter into force. And I think it's really helping to open up the imaginations of folks around the world of what we can actually do when we work together. And all of that is incredibly significant and will have implications for our work on so many issues. I think also divestment, many of you have been working on divestment already before the treaty enters into force. And we've seen several big pension funds and government institutions say that they're pulling their money away from nuclear weapon producers, anticipating that this is going to enter into force. And so once it does, I think we'll see even more there. And when it comes to women's participation, I think, this treaty is the first nuclear weapons law that gives support for the inclusion of women. And hopefully this will have an impact on who states parties bring to future meetings and who governments are appointing to work on these issues. But the treaty also recognizes the disproportionate impact that nuclear weapons have on Indigenous communities, and it has provisions in terms of environmental remediation and victim assistance. It's really the first feminist law on nuclear weapons, and this is really important for us to recognize and promote. And this is not just about women's participation. That's never enough to solve our problems. We're going to see many women take the lead here in the new administration in the United States and continuing to engage in warmongering. And so it's not just about women's participation, and we need to be very conscious of that, but it's really about taking a feminist approach and an anti-militarist approach to disarmament and to weapons, to open up space for dialogue about what nuclear weapons mean to those who possess them, and about having the courage to challenge the dominant narratives and the institutions that perpetuate the status quo. The TPNW has done this, and once it's in force, we need to continue to propel its possibilities forward, and not allow any of the critical narratives about its limitations to hold us back, because we're the ones that created this treaty, and we're the ones that can bring it to its full potential. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ray. This was a great last sentence. We will bring it to our to the full potential altogether. And thanks for all your activities. I hope to see you soon in the real world again. And with that, I will give the word to Sasha and to our third laureate.
So there are people who are very active on political questions in the background. Often those people are less visible than the protagonists of social movements. The anti-nuclear movement also has such, let's say, unknown heroes. And Jack and Felice Cohen-Joppa belong to those who have devoted a lifetime to support other anti-nuclear resistors. Together, they offered support to those who risk everything to protest against nuclear power and nuclear weapons. Some of them are eventually tried and jailed. Since 1980, Felice and Jack have provided comprehensive reporting on thousands of anti-nuclear resistors. For this purpose, they founded a newsletter and a charitable organization called the Nuclear Resistor. In 1990, they expanded their work to include also reporting on anti-war resistors with the same focus on prisoner support. Felice and Jack, I'm very glad that you are here with us today and that we can talk about how you managed to keep spreading this inspiration under very difficult conditions. We would like to know more from you about how social movements can prevail and even draw strength during tough times. The past 4 years have been tough for all of us, but for social movements in particular. And for some, these times are not already over yet. So how did you experience this period, and what do you think about the outcome of the US presidential elections? Do you think that they could finally change the game, or how, in other ways, does it affect your work?
Thank you, Sasha. It's really great to be with everyone virtually here today. And we want to thank the Nuclear Free Future Foundation for this recognition of our work. Klaus, I'd really like to thank you especially too for your vision and dedication for all of these years. In 2002, I was the coordinator of the US campaign to free Israeli nuclear whistleblower Mordechai Vanunu. He had been in prison at that time for 16 years of his 18-year sentence, almost 12 of those in solitary confinement. And receiving the Nuclear Free Future Award in the resistance category meant a great deal to him. And it also meant a lot to the international campaign working for his freedom. The bulletin of the atomic scientist's doomsday clock is inching closer to midnight, as we all know. It's now 100 seconds to midnight, closer now than it's ever been. Part of the reason is that for 4 years, President Trump has had access to a nuclear arsenal that can destroy all life on Earth. For that reason and others, the world will breathe easier when a new president is inaugurated on January 20th. But let's not forget, President-elect Biden is pro-nuclear power, and it was President Obama, who Biden served under as vice president, who authorized the modernization of the US nuclear arsenal to a tune of more than $1 trillion over 30 years. No matter who our leaders are, there are uranium mines to clean up, nuclear power plants to shut down, and nuclear weapons to disarm. And we all still have a lot of work to do. So I don't put my faith and hope in the leaders who are in power. It's people power that inspires me and gives me hope. It's citizen action that influences the politicians. And here's something that's always been meaningful for me to remember in this work. Every day, every night for the past 40 years, there's been at least one person in a prison cell for their anti-nuclear activism, sometimes 50 or even 100 or more people. And that hasn't changed no matter who the leader of the country is. I'd like to mention some friends, one who's in jail now and others who will soon be starting prison sentences. In April of 2018, the Kings Bay Plowshares Group were arrested after cutting the fence and entering the Trident nuclear submarine base in Georgia. They were found guilty at their trial a year ago on 4 charges. Liz McAllister has completed her prison sentence, and Mark Colville still awaits his sentencing. In the last couple of months, Patrick O'Neill, Carmen Trotta, Martha Hennessy, and Claire Grady were sentenced to 10, 12, or 14 months in prison and have to report in December, January, or February to start their sentences. Steve Kelly, a Jesuit priest, has been in jail since the action for more than 2.5 years. He was sentenced last month to 33 months and is now waiting for federal marshals to transport him across the country to appear in court in Tacoma, Washington for an outstanding warrant from an earlier action he was involved in at the West Coast Trident base. When they did their action in 2018, there was no way they could imagine that there would be this pandemic that requires physical distancing. And prison is not a place where it's possible to maintain any physical distance. It's just the opposite. The spread of COVID in prisons continues to be a very serious problem. And that's our challenge now. Still, people convicted of nonviolent crimes continue to be sent to prison. So in coming months, I invite you to go to kingsbayplowshares7.org or nukeresistor.org to find out how to write to the Kings Bay Plowshares who are in prison and learn about what other support they might need. Martha told the judge recently at her sentencing, "I have no criminal intent. I want to help prevent another nuclear holocaust." The final questions that dying children everywhere, not only here in Brunswick, but all across the planet, will be asking their parents is, why didn't someone stop this while we still had a chance to stop it? Some people did try to stop this, but we prosecuted them and we locked them away.
Thank you so much, Felice. For my second question, I would like to come back to the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Ray has already pointed out the prospects that the entry into force of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons might open up. You too have both been involved in recent months in civil society mobilization for the TPNW, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. How, Jack, do you think, or will grassroots activists respond to January 22nd and also beyond?
Well, first let me express my own appreciation for this honor today and being with the other laureates as well. It means a lot to me. For many of us who are nuclear abolitionists, that's people who have long believed that arms control is not enough. We see the entry into force of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons as a pivotal day in the lifetimes, in many lifetimes of work to ban the bomb. Because on January 22nd, the terms of our engagement with nuclear weapons will be forever changed. And while the United States claims the treaty has no meaning here, we know that its diplomatic weight and financial teeth are only going to grow as more nations ratify the pact. So for grassroots activists, it's our responsibility to use this new tool to amplify public awareness and the political impact of the treaty. How do we exploit its potential to delegitimize nuclear weapons and point the way for their abolition? So knowing this day would come, just over a year ago, Felice and I began working with colleagues at Nuke Watch in Wisconsin and the Oak Ridge Environmental Peace Alliance in Tennessee to organize a conference about what we could do in the United States when the ban treaty comes into force. Well, then the pandemic forced us to cancel the conference, which we had scheduled for the end of May. But then as the ratifications continued to rack up through the summer, we decided to reconvene online and expand our organizing and do whatever we can to encourage a wide range of public and online actions that can be undertaken on January 22nd and during that week in any community in the country. Here's what we planned so far. Working with the Alliance for Nuclear Accountability, we hope to see a presence that day at many, if not all, of the nuclear weapons labs and factories in this country, plus the Pentagon and at many nuclear military bases. And in addition, we're encouraging demonstrations at federal buildings, congressional offices, universities, and financial institutions with nuclear weapons ties, in public squares, on street corners, and more. There's something that everyone could do to heighten awareness of the treaty. Some of the creative manifestations that we're already aware are being planned include ringing church bells at noon on that day, airplanes pulling banners over populated cities, messages projected on buildings, all of them to send sending uniformed nuclear ban treaty compliance workers to deliver copies of the ban treaty and to post the text at the offending institutions. We're working with a media consultant, we're working with ICANN and with other groups to bring together educational and graphic resources that promote the ban treaty with the common message that nuclear weapons are now outlawed and that it's the beginning of the end of their threat to humanity. There's a Facebook event page, Nuclear Ban Treaty EIF, and plans are underway for a searchable map where people can post and find local events. We hope that this informal coordination for January 22nd will lead to more collaboration in coming years that will invigorate the movement for nuclear abolition in the United States. So when I think about the ban treaty and our work supporting activists in prison, I'm sure that the members of the Kings Bay Plowshares group who will be in prison or on their way that day will be elated by news of all the activity. They joined decades of effort by hundreds of other nuclear resistors and their attorneys over the years to bring international law into the courtroom in defense of their anti-nuclear actions, but unfortunately their efforts have sadly been met with very limited success. But now, referring to the ban treaty may open new avenues of legal defense for activists who see themselves engaged not in classic civil disobedience where one violates an unjust law, but instead activists now will be proactive, acting as enforcers of the treaty that has outlawed nuclear weapons. Daniel Ellsberg, Pentagon whistleblower and anti-nuclear activist, has often said that nuclear weapons must not be made in this country without having to arrest Americans to do it. But while the pandemic rages and the tactics of risking arrest and imprisonment are on hold, there's still plenty of work for us to do.